was a child in Brazil, what I really enjoyed was to explore nature, walking around, walking at night, seeing stars, seeing insects, and how everything was so interconnected in a very special way. I think I was born a scientist. I was so fascinated about the world. So for me, looking at different tools and looking at different ways of seeing the world was fantastic. Hi, I'm Paulo de Souza. I'm a science leader at csiro. The work we're doing today is about attaching small backpacks, small microchips to bees. Just like you do microchipping in dogs and cats, we do that with bees. We are trying to learn more about the bees, how they behave, how frequently they leave the hive, for how long they stay out there, and how they respond to changes in the environment. Over the last 50 years, the bees are disappearing from the world. Without bees, we won't have most of the fruits we need. We must understand what's going on before it becomes too late. So the way we collect the data is very interesting. You have the bee with a little backpack, and in that backpack you have an antenna that communicates to another antenna nearby. So every time the bee leaves the hive, this microchip talks to this antenna and tells Mary is leaving the hive. And Mary stays out there flying for about an hour. When she comes back to this antenna and the microchip talk again. Each car has a license plate, so each bee has a license plate or has a microchip with a unique number. As the bee leaves the hive, an antenna reads that information and communicates with a small computer that is sitting next to the hive. All the information is stored in the memory of this computer. And then that information is transmitted either by Wi-Fi or via Bluetooth using your smartphone. There are a number of things that I learned at school that helps me today with my work. I learned more about fractions and ratios and optimization, modeling, statistics. All this in equations, all these tools in mathematics are so useful for me today. I won't be able to do this research without that knowledge that I learned. For example, we look at the activity of the bees. It's increasing by 10 o'clock in the morning, getting to a peak by 1 p.m. and then the activity of the bees decline. And that looks exactly like a bell-shaped curve. And we model that not just with all the data, but with a single equation. We can explain how the bees will behave. We can predict how they will behave. With calculus, I am able to calculate how many bees will be leaving the hives at this time of the day, depending on the weather conditions. With fractions and ratios, I'm able to calculate what's the amount of the pollen that the bee will be able to carry and how much this microchip would influence the bees. We don't need to attach sensors to all the bees. So we attach sensors to just some of the bees. And by statistics, we can then predict how all the bees will behave, how the whole population will behave. Understanding the principles of optimization was very important for us to understand then if a farmer would be over-pollinating or under-pollinating a given hives, and how many hives you need to have in a farm. To calculate that, you need to know how bees would behave, and you need to know mathematics. And that is crucial for us to understand how important maths are for farmers, are for beekeepers, are for scientists. Bees are very predictable. We can, with this technology, follow the bees' movements. Depending on the weather conditions, if it's a hot day, if it's not raining, or if it's not too windy, the bees will be working more. And they will be working for longer hours than they would work if it's a little bit too cold. Bee behavior will also be influenced by colleagues. What one bee is doing is also influencing the other ones. So they work as a colony, they work together, they go together to have a lunch break. And they come back together to the class. The bees like to do pajama parties. So they visit each other hives from day to day. So they go to another hive, stay there for a couple of days, come back with the little friends, and stay in the hive, and they keep doing that. With scale and ratios, I'm able to determine how many bees will be going to a pajama party or staying in their hive. The technology that we have today is 2.5 by 2.5 millimeters inside. What we want to have is something that will be much smaller than that, about the size of a grain of sand, that will enable us to not only study bees, but also to study mosquitoes transmitting diseases, to study many other insects, and eventually look for new applications of that. You might be able to swallow some of those sensors and look how healthy your body is. Or you might be able to monitor the wings of an aircraft in flight and learn more about the structure of the airplane as it's flying. The future it's fantastic if you look at the way we're developing the technology. Costs of production will decrease so much that will enable us to produce much more for the same amount of money. And I think the future is to be built by the students of today. The students of today are the ones that will bring this to your reality. Sometimes at school we learn things that we don't really see how I can apply that and how that will be useful. At the end of the day, it will be useful to you in so many ways. Just in this research, we use mathematics in everything we do. The world is out there, it's complex, and at the same way it reveals the structure. And mathematics is the language that enables us to understand the world. You may want to be a farmer, you may want to be a doctor, you may want to do some programming, you may want to do something else. Whatever you do, mathematics is going to be such a useful tool to make a difference.